Miss Freeman from Morpeth to the Leader of the Council. Did the Leader wish to... I don't think she's here. So did the Leader wish to answer that question?
Well, yeah, I'll answer it, but are we going to send a written response to Ms. Freeman?
I think that would be advisable, yes.
Yeah, okay, so if we send a written response, but my answer would have been that we don't have a policy within the County Council about diversity per se. However, it's important to me that the Cabinet is made up with as wider choice and diverse views and potential race and all sorts of other things, so that we are a good group together. And I'm sure that the Labour group would take notice of what we've done and perhaps think about copying that one day.
Okay. Okay. The second question, Miss Priestley of Berwick, and I don't think she's here either. So do you wish?
Well, the answer to that question is the fact that because we have a local charter, that we work with town and parish councils, particularly town councils, with play areas, and it is their responsibility to maintain the play areas. And so Berwick Town Council are ultimately responsible for this particular play area, and we have advised the Berwick Town Council that this is up to them. We do know Berwick Town Council has spent significant amounts of money very helpfully on this particular play area, and we'll certainly work with them in the future to help provide any help that we can.
Okay, it's 14:57, so I don't think I can actually start the second part of the meeting until 3 o'clock. So I think we might want to just before we do that, I'll do the housekeeping before we do that. I understand our microphones are one between two. I was asked you might want to move them towards you when you speak, and can you make sure you definitely use them on this meeting, because we're a much bigger room than previous, and it's definitely needed for listening and for the broadcast as well. So I'll just leave you that until, and I've got 2 minutes. Start. Thank you everyone for attending. It's item 1, apologies for absence. Do we have any apologies for absence, Karen? I've Councillor Bridget, but also have Councillor
Gallagher.
We also have Councillor Jackson, Councillor Homer, Councillor, who else have we got? Oliver, Councillor Sesford and Councillor Bourne.
Councillor Towns will be running slightly late, but he will be here.
Yes, thank you. Councillor Towns is on his way. Item 2 on the agenda is minutes of the County Council held on Wednesday the 7th of July, as circulated to be confirmed as a true record and signed by the business chair with the common seal of the council, page 9 to 26. Councillor Foster.
Thank you, Chair. When we were last here 2 months ago, full council, I did mention that I'd been waiting since May for tech from the County Council. I still haven't got that.
Okay, thank you. I think probably needs to make an appointment and sort it out with, and I'm quite happy to do that. Okay. Anyone else? Can I move those as a true record? Is that correct? Yeah, I need it proposed and seconded, please. Proposed by Councillor Wearmouth, seconded by Councillor Sanderson. Thank you. Okay, I'll move to the next item of the agenda, disclosure of members' interests. Does anyone have an interest to declare? Not already put down. Councillor Grimshaw, sorry.
It's just, some of the minutes refer to Advance and the International Board. It's just to be noted. I won't participate in this, but I just want to declare it again. Thank you.
Thank you. And remember our microphones. And sorry if I can't see people because I'm not raised up, so I do apologise in advance if I'm straining on that one. Anything else? No, thank you. Announcements. I just have one announcement to make, and it's sadly the death of the former County Councillor John Smith. John sadly passed away on Saturday the 28th of August 2021. He was elected to the council in November 1999 for the Wansbeck Hurst electoral division, and he served until May 2008, and he was also a portfolio holder. So I think I pass our best wishes from the council to his friends and his family. So if we can do that, that'd be useful. Thank you. Okay, I move to the next item is correspondence. I don't have any correspondence. I think if I go back to announcements, actually, I think the leader had an announcement.
Thank you. Just a couple of very quick things to update you on. Last time we were talking about devolution and the possible working with the other local authorities to make up an LA7 as a larger mayoral entity. The government are very keen on this idea, but I think things have sort of cooled a little bit on that front. I did say, though, I would come back to Council in September to have a discussion about it, but there isn't really anything to discuss at the moment. Officers are still talking to government, and if anything changes, I'll let you know. Secondly, on Afghan refugees, I've made it quite clear that our county is open for those people that are suffering and have suffered enormously, and that remains our position. We are looking currently at 3 different schemes that will allow us to take in Afghan refugees. And I hope very much that you all are with me on this, that we must open up our county and share those delights that we have in Northumberland with those people who really need our help. And that will remain our position. Thank you.
Thank you for that. As I said, correspondence, I had no correspondence. So I'll go on to questions. And the first question is from Councillor Ezel-Shelvin to Councillor Riddle. Councillor Ezel-Shelvin.
I'm sorry, it's a bit of a long question. It happened to be my first question. I did not know that it can be shorter and I'm allowed as supplementary. So basically, if I may summarize, Councillor Riddle, we have lots of sycamore trees in southeast Cramlington, planted in 70s without any due attention being paid to the nature of the tree. So these trees periodically develop what we call tree aphids or tree lice. So when they do get attacked by these tree lice, we get some sticky stuff all over the leaves, and then they get thrown around. The footpath is become very sticky. And also, even, for example, conservatories, garage roofs, even if they are meters away from the tree, it gets affected as well. So what I want to do is that the farm, as far as I inquired, council has no policy to treat these tree lice. And so my question basically is that, would the council formulate a policy that protects residents' properties and also preserves the green environment? Given that sycamore trees are widely recognized as not suitable for being in residential areas, can the woodlands team's officers be permitted to replace these affected trees more suited to those that are suited to residential areas? Isn't it time to consider formulating some residents-friendly change of policies on this front and allot additional funds in order to carry through these policies? Thank you.
Councillor Riddle.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Chapman. I've got quite a long officer response in reply to your quite long question. We are aware of problems associated with aphid infestation in trees, and our officers do on occasions receive complaints about this. Aphid infestations are variable, they rise and fall with the season and are present only in a few species of trees. The consequences of infestation would usually be mild, but on rare occasions can be considered to be significant. All requests for tree work are assessed in line with Northumberland County Council's Trees and Woodlands Strategy 2015 to 2020, called Growing Together. Following assessment, all required tree work is prioritised and carried out in accordance with identified hazards and risks. Any tree work identified as non-urgent is categorised as either medium or low priority, and the works are programmed accordingly. Problems relating to aphid infestations are generally either categorised as not requiring any action or are deemed as a low priority, and as such, any remedial work can only be undertaken when resources allow. In exceptional circumstances where the infestations and their effects are severe and recurrent, we will consider remedial works on a case-by-case basis. It may be possible to treat the aphids themselves rather than prune or remove a tree. Removal of the trees would only be considered as a last resort. It is acknowledged that historical planting of street trees in residential areas of Northumberland has on occasion resulted in species of trees being planted which would not be considered appropriate now. It is now our policy to carefully consider these species, location and position of trees to be planted, and to take into consideration the possible effects such as honeydew from the aphids, as well as damage to footways and impacts on adjoining properties. However, the Council is not supportive of the proposal for a large-scale programme of removal for poorly selected species of urban trees, as this would require significant additional resources to undertake, and the large-scale removal of established healthy trees would have a significant adverse environmental impact on the local amenity, street scene and habitat within the affected communities.
Supplementary, Councillor Ezel-Shelvin.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Riddle. Yes, I think you have given me kind of things I'm concerned about. You talk about strategy, you talk about priorities. I looked at the details of Council's priorities. When it is low priority, what it says is that as long as resources allow, which means it never happens. So I have got 3 or 4 residents whose conservatories have been completely ruined, especially at the top part, and they're thinking of taking the council to the court for the damages it is causing. So it is our responsibility to ensure that residents are happy. So we need to add additional priorities, in my opinion, so that these issues are addressed with higher priority. That's all I'm asking for. I'm not asking for a large-scale program, but however, there are trees which are significantly affected by tree lice, and they are being treated as a low priority activity, and there are no resources, which means nothing gets done. So therefore, I think we need to look at the way we prioritize these things in a different way, so that we can cover ourselves from a legal perspective. That's all. Thank you.
So I think you was asking for that as a note.
Thank you. I understand your supplementary, but what I will say is that, you know, if there are particular recurrent cases where you believe or where residents believe they are causing significant damage, then we will look at them. I'm not going to say they're going to be done. I've said we will look at them and investigate them.
Thank you.
Thank
Councillor, question 2 from Councillor Robinson. Councillor Robinson.
Thank you, Chair. The last administration had an ambition of building, and I've used inverted commas, 1,000 new social housing units. How many were actually delivered, and if possible, what were they? New builds, affordable homes, conversions, etc.?
Councillor Horncastle.
Thank you, Councillor Robinson. Right, the answer is the Council remain committed to the delivery of affordable homes, and one of my priorities is to bring forward a plan for delivering, in partnership with all sectors, new affordable homes across the county. The COVID pandemic and the associated ongoing challenges within the construction industry and supply chain have impacted on our ability to bring forward new homes at the rate we would wish to do so. At this time, we have a pipeline of 629 units. We have approved the delivery of 194 units, which is made up of new build homes, the acquisition of Section 106 units, and we have also acquired or have plans to acquire 25 homes by exercising our right of first refusal when people wish to sell their home that they bought through the right to buy scheme. We are working on a number of schemes which will deliver another 145 units. We have also identified a number of other sites which, whilst requiring further investigation, could deliver a further 290 affordable homes. To support our ambition, we have also secured approximately £900,000 of grant funding from Homes England. We have also facilitated the delivery of community-led housing and have provided just over £300,000 of capital funding to support community organisations to develop their own housing, and we have plans to help further.
Supplementary, Councillor Robinson.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for those figures, Colin. My question would simply be, have we got a commitment from this administration to at least do the same again?
Could you repeat that, please, Malcolm? I'm struggling with the noise behind me.
My ears are full, I can hardly hear myself. Colin, have we got a commitment from this administration to do at least the same again?
Councillor Horncastle.
We've obviously would like to fulfil the actual 1,000 that the previous administration said, but we want to go a lot further than that. And in discussions with the leader, Councillor Sanderson, I have made it one of my priorities to actually extend this affordable housing scheme to get many more. I cannot give you a number at the moment, but if we reach 1,000, we'll not be stopping there.
Councillor Sanderson might
as far as we can.
That might be able to answer.
Yeah, thank you very much, and I completely agree with Councillor Horncastle. We are actually going to create a new dedicated ring-fenced fund for affordable houses this coming financial year and for the rest of the administration.
Okay, question 3, Councillor Robinson.
It's a pity we didn't have another supplementary there, but never mind. Question 3. We've seen a veritable plethora of investigations started over the last few years. The last one I was personally questioned about. We seem to offer righteous indignation at the time and insist they are independent and autonomous and they will do this and that, but we never seem to hear the outcomes. I was interviewed about the probe into the recent leaks of confidential information. So have we at least got an update on what's happening to that and if the source has been identified?
Leader.
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. I think it's fair to say that there were a great number of members and also a great deal of staff who were very very put out by the leaks that took place. It was very bad for morale, very bad for our reputation, and very bad for team working generally. And certainly I and Chief Executive and all the others in the leadership role felt very disappointed that there were breaches that took place that were deliberately designed to cause damage, and so I very much regret that those happened. So that was why I was very keen that we tackled the investigations, and I was lampooned slightly by a certain website that I was taking the leaks too seriously. I don't think I did. I think it was really important that we carried out a full and thorough investigation, and I'm grateful for the staff that were involved in that. I can say that the police are involved, so I can't say any more about this at the moment. But all I would say is it's up to each and every one of us to consider the wider implications of thinking about leaking documents that might, for example, bring political gain, but might at the same time cause real hardship for those staff that we value so greatly, and for the reputation that we all want to see grow and continue to grow in the county.
Supplementary, Councillor Robinson.
I think what we're talking about was quite callous in the way it was done. And I know it did put pressure on officers and other employees that we've got. So can we have a commitment to make public the findings of whatever the internal investigation and or the police investigation comes up with?
I can't give that commitment because I haven't discussed it with the Chief Executive or the officers who are dealing with this. But I think it's a perfectly reasonable request to make, and if I can do that, I will.
Okay, Councillor Hill to Councillor Riddle.
Thank you. Despite the good efforts of individuals within the local services team, there is still a huge gulf between public expectation and the reality of the tidiness and maintenance of our streets, green spaces, estates, cemeteries and public toilets in the Berwick area and elsewhere in Northumberland. Do you agree that this points to fundamental issues with resourcing and service delivery models?
Thank you, Councillor Hill. In short, no, I don't agree. My response is our public open spaces are maintained by a dedicated team who ensure that the local environmental quality in Berwick and elsewhere in Northumberland is kept to a good standard. The core resource for delivering these services is sufficient to maintain a good standard of local environmental quality in Northumberland. The service delivery model is effective and consists of area-based, multi-skilled teams supported by an integrated management model structured around the local area council boundaries, and all staff having clear responsibilities and accountabilities for the standards of service being achieved in their areas. It has acknowledged that there have been a significant increase in demand on a range of neighbourhood services during the last 18 months as a result of the COVID pandemic. With more people staying at home and accessing their local spaces, more and a significant increase in visitors and tourists in the county due to staycation holidays. And however, the Council has proactively responded to these challenges and has deployed extra additional resources to meet these increased demands, such as significantly increasing the frequency for daily cleansing of public conveniences, which are now undertaken 3 times per day, and increasing the frequency of litter picking and emptying of litter bins, particularly at busy locations such as our town centres, parks, country parks and along the Northumberland coastline. In addition to the normal supervisory spot checks, the environmental standards being achieved by our teams are regularly monitored through well-established and documented performance management arrangements that entail supervisory staff undertaking inspections and recording their findings via the local environmental quality surveys. These surveys are undertaken across the county following nationally recognised Keep Britain Tidy standards and measure the presence of negative environmental factors such as detritus, litter and dog fouling. Since January 2021, 510 surveys have been undertaken county-wide. 96% of these surveys were predominantly free of detritus, 98% were free of litter and 100% free of dog fouling. These are all on a better than performance target than set in our service plans, which were 92% targets, 95 and 99, indicating that the service is meeting the LEQ targets and delivering a good standard of service. 90 of those inspections were in Berwick and surrounding areas. 96% of these sites were free of detritus, 100% free of litter and 100% free of dog fouling. So since January 21, the Council Customers Relation Management System, LAGN, has also recorded 396 customer inquiries / complaints, which have included the following topics: weeds, litter, detritus, rubbish, waste, mess, bins, sweep, dog, mess and glass. It should be noted that only 6 of these inquiries have been from residents in the Berwick area. The service performance information and customer feedback being received would therefore suggest that there is not a significant gulf between public expectations over the quality of their local environment and the maintenance standards being achieved by the Council. However, we do recognise the importance of maintaining a high-quality local environment across the whole county for both residents and visitors alike, and we remain committed to working with local communities and other key stakeholders and organisations. We seek to continuous improvement in the physical appearance and quality of life within our communities. A good example of this is the Neighbourhood Services Partnership that are taking place in a wide range of town and parish councils, including Berwick Town Council, who work with us to enhance the environmental quality of their town.
Supplementary, Councillor Hill.
Don't know where to begin. Can I just ask, do you accept that on a day-to-day basis, and I'm sure others will be saying that they have the same, that every day you're stopped in the street, you're emailed, you message on Facebook, you see things on Facebook about the state of the cemeteries, the toilets, the green spaces and so on. The team are very, very responsive. So, you know, if you say, give you one example, at many mattress was dumped out in one of the state, and they removed that very, very quickly. But when you walk around any of the areas, you look, and it's just not good enough. It's the bank, that bank is only cut twice a year, that bush is overgrown, the pavements are strewn with weeds. And do you not think, I know it's easier said than done having a constructive conversation with the parish or town council, but do you not agree that one thing that would help, which I believe has happened in the past and happens elsewhere, where it's actually one person's responsibility, one person is responsible on a rotation basis, but your zone is the town council, your zone is Highcliffe Estate, your zone is that, so people take responsibility for that area? Because, you know, John, it was a very good spiel, but I don't really think it would wash with anyone. And the reality is, even though the team were excellent and they're very responsive, the service just is not good enough. And I, for one, and I'm sure everyone else is sick and tired of hearing residents. Yeah, I am. You let him go on for an hour.
He was answering. He was answering a question.
But do you just not agree it's frustrating? And I do agree with residents that it's just not good enough. And we need to do more. And it would be good if you said, you know, we do our best, we try, and yeah, let's be even better, rather than, you know, the speaking clock of excuses.
An answer from Councillor Riddle.
Right, I will respond to you, Councillor Hill. You know, I do think our staff do a first-class job. They're very, very dedicated, and you know, we did have some problems at the beginning of the season with the weather and the weeds. You know, the season this year, but you know, we've got back on track with things. And you know, I hear what you're saying, but when I was up in Berwick, looking at cemeteries, and I also made it my business to go and visit the public conveniences, because they are part of the programme for improvement this next year. So when I was up there, I went to have a look. And, you know, I didn't see anything that was untoward to me. And, you know, the figures, if there's only 6 of these inquiries coming from residents in Berwick, then, you know, what you're telling me just doesn't wash.
Question 5, Councillor Hill to Councillor Horncastle.
All right, okay, I'll move on to this question just now.
Thank you.
And I'm aware that since I put the question in, there has been communications on this, but maybe on some specifics. A number of local authorities across the country have committed to taking refugees from Afghanistan. Has NCC discussed, agreed or communicated any position on this?
Councillor Horncastle.
Thank you, Councillor Hill. Northumberland has a long history of supporting those in need from other countries and have to date helped 44 families settle in Northumberland from Syria. Prior to the current situation in Afghanistan, in response to a request from government to support resettlement of locally employed staff through the Afghanistan Relocations and Assistance Policy, we agreed to support 6 families. We have already received our first 3 families and will shortly be receiving a further 3 families under this scheme. At this time, we have not been formally asked to increase or accelerate this offer. We are, however, currently awaiting further information from government about a new resettlement scheme that was recently announced, known as the Afghan Citizens Resettlement Scheme. In its first year, the scheme will welcome 5,000 Afghans with up to 20,000 over a 5-year period. Priority will be given to women and girls and religious and other minorities who are most at risk of human rights abuses. This scheme is in addition to the current scheme launched in April. There will therefore be 2 schemes in operation, and the response within the region is being coordinated by the North East Migration Partnership. In recognition of the current crisis and that many Afghan citizens have already been transported to this country, we have held discussions with internal and external partners, and in advance of a formal request, we are developing an offer of support which will be discussed with the North East Migration Partnership.
Supplementary, Councillor Hill.
Thank you. It's actually to add to Councillor Robertson's question earlier. Do you agree that on the subject of housing refugees, we do struggle in certain areas with chronic shortage of social housing, particularly in certain areas and particularly the larger 3+ bedroom houses. I've had a resident who has just been housed in a suitable house and it's taken 7 years. So do you agree that this is another reason why we need to address our chronic shortage of social housing in parts of Northumberland, including Berwick?
Councillor Horncastle.
I can understand some people thinking along those lines, but when you look at the horrible scenes that you see on television with these people actually in mortal danger, any civilised country can turn its back on those people. And yes, there is a shortage of affordable housing in this county. I'm not talking about the local authorities, I'm talking about our own. There is, but our housing services are doing their level best. We will provide as much accommodation as we possibly can for the Afghans. And we will not turn the back on them. There is a third scheme just been mentioned this morning, which I haven't any information on, but the leader might in a moment. But we have plenty of time to sort things out, because what happens is, when these people have been flown out of Afghanistan and the ones that have come to this country, first thing you've got to do is get them here safely, and then you have all sorts of health checks. Then there's immigration involved with make sure that none of them could be a risk to national security, and then they actually quarantine for quite a while, up to a month. And then they're allocated to local authorities. So that gives this authority plenty of time to find them suitable accommodation. Now, I think it's fair to say there'll not be any of them allocated to the rural areas, because they have to have be in an area where it's not going to put them in rural areas. They need access to the proper support and the services. They have to be possibly close to other Afghan communities, and possibly even close to a mosque and proper transport. So there's only certain parts of the county will be affected. So any sort of like people that you're concerned about in your part of the world can't be affected, will very unlikely to be affected by this scheme. But this authority will not be turning this back on the Afghan situation.
Thank you. Question 6 from Councillor Taylor to the leader.
Thank you, Chair. Work seems to have stopped on Bedlington's Town Centre redevelopment. Are there any problems or issues? Do you know what the hold-up is, please?
Thank you for your question. The work in Bedlington Town Centre is proceeding as we anticipated, with the Aldi store, the associated cellar works, and Advanced Northumberland car park, footpath and highway works. And they're progressing as planned. However, there is a delay with the demolition due to resolving a party wall matter, which is often a reason that causes hold-ups in many situations. And there's also potential contamination of floor slabs. So a revised programme is being developed, and we'd expect that all the demolition works will be completed probably by the end of October, if everything goes according to plan. And the new build is on target to start later this year.
Supplementary, Councillor Taylor.
Thank you. Is it possible to get a copy of the plans so that we can put them up in the community centre, please?
Good question. I hadn't anticipated that one. I would have thought, I'll look to Wojciech, who...
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can do that.
That's great. Thank
Okay.
you very much.
Question 7 from Councillor Grimshaw to the leader.
Thank you, Chair. Do you think that the scrutiny meeting of the corporate scrutiny on the 9th of August was a good way for this council to conduct its business? And have you reviewed the footage following members' complaints?
Thank you for that question. I think scrutiny can work well at times. I think it was the Local Government Act in 2000 under the Labour government that brought in scrutiny and did away with the committee structure, which I personally thought was a better way of analysing, discussing and coming to compromise. But scrutiny does work reasonably well most of the time. I'm afraid I haven't managed to look at all the footage yet. I understand there were some serious issues in there, and I think they're being dealt with.
Supplementary, Councillor Grimshaw.
Thank you very much. But I do believe you were informed by our leader and that you indeed were saying that we were going to look at it. And obviously I'm very disappointed you haven't done. But I do thank you for your response, Glenn, and I do believe that you are addressing the disgraceful behaviour towards senior officers. However, for a handful of your members, it's obviously not working, and they think that your instructions do not apply to them, while holding or have held senior positions within your group. Therefore, do you agree with me that councillors who continue to ignore your instructions must be held to account, and ask that you as leader of this council, what action will you be taking to make sure it stops now? Because unfortunately, I have been privy and sat in various meetings where, you know, you have had instructions to say, please behave yourself and conduct yourself rightly, because we are a committed county council and we represent our residents. And I just wonder, as you know, if you've actually taken into account of these things hasn't stopped and it's still going on. So could I just please have a response off you about how you're going to make sure it stops from today, Glenn, if you don't mind? Thank you very much.
No, not at all. There is a members' code of conduct that should be, and I think largely is, read and understood by the vast majority of councillors on this council, and it places a duty upon all members to treat officers with respect, dignity, and vice versa. Officers should treat members in the same way. And I think that code of conduct is important for all members to follow, and I have certainly asked that, in fact requested that Councillor Flux, as the whip for the Conservative group, and myself and the Deputy Leader have made that point a number of times.
Question 8 from Councillor Nisbet to the leader.
Can the leader confirm the cost of the call-in meeting at the Holiday Inn, inclusive of all officer time at the event and preparation, room booking, members and officers' travel and IT equipment? Can you confirm that, please?
Yes, I can. Don't really want to, but I can. Right, so, I mean, what I would say to begin with is that with this programme of refurbishment on this building, there is also a requirement sometimes to find a large meeting room, and that's what happened with this one. And there was a meeting room, I think, because there weren't any available rooms here, that's why this one was picked. So I can tell you exactly. The room hire for the meeting was £500. Another meeting was held after the call-in meeting to take advantage of the booking. So you could say half that, potentially. The hire of the room for setup on the previous day was £200. The audio-visual costs were £750. I'm not sure quite why, but anyway, £750 is what it cost. Officer time is difficult to estimate, as officers would have been working anyway. So I can't give you an answer on that one, Kath. And the Holiday Inn was booked because there wasn't, apparently at that time, an alternative suitable room in County Hall because of the reasons I've given, because we're undergoing this refurbishment, and so therefore there was the need to have this meeting in the Holiday Inn.
Councillor Nisbet, a supplementary.
I just say thank you for that, Glenn, but, you know, it was unnecessary. Thank you.
Okay, that wasn't a question, but we'll take it anyway. Thank you. Question 9 from Councillor Dickinson to the leader.
And just in case Miss Freeman is still listening, which I doubt she will be, I shan't be taking any advice from Glenn on diversity within the Cabinet. My group has 50% women. I think his group has 4. Anyway. Let's not get upset about numbers. Anyway, does the leader anticipate... What was that?
Can we have some order, please? Can we please have some order? We'll return to the agenda. Thank you very much. Please don't take advantage, anyone. Thank you. Can we just get on with the agenda? Thank you.
Such fun, though, Barry. Anyway, does the leader anticipate any further challenges from his own members on any items he's recently made a decision on? And could any such internal dispute be dealt with internally to avoid great cost, which he's just referenced, and stop the diminished value of the call-in procedures which have a full role in this council?
Well, I have to say, of all the issues that are being dealt with at the moment by this council across this wonderful county of ours, children's services, adult social care, education, roads, pavements, country park, you haven't chosen to pick a question at all because we are doing so well as an administration in all these areas. So I will, however, answer this question by simply saying, yes, I do anticipate challenge, and I would want that. May not be appropriate within the Labour Party, but certainly is within ours, and I'm more than happy to be challenged anytime. And I think it's important that Scrutiny does have the power and ability to be able to challenge strongly the leadership of a council, and if that happens to be the same party, that should not stop that from happening. So, yes, I expect more challenge, and I'm more than happy to have that. In fact, I welcome it, and look forward to working with you on all the other things that we're dealing with at the moment.
Supplementary, Councillor Dickinson.
Thank you for that. Glenn, and you know, we will challenge along the way. You won't have to rely on your own members for that. Could the leader clarify that there is no current or imminent leader change within the Conservative group?
Well, maybe you know something I don't, but I'm not aware of it. I have heard rumours about the Labour Party, though.
Question 10 from Councillor Dale to the leader.
Thank you, Councillor Sanderson. Work will be commencing on the County Council's budget proposals for 2022-23. Please could you inform this new council of the programme for the development of these proposals over the coming months?
Yes, thank you very much, Councillor Dale. There is a written response which I would like Councillor Dale to get because it does itemise all the different meetings. I can briefly say, though, that on the 8th of November, Corporate Service and Economic Growth Scrutiny Committee will begin to look at the proposed budget. It'll go to Cabinet on the 9th of November. And then the estimated collection fund balances for 22-23 council tax base. We'll be meeting about that on the 6th of December with Corporate Services Economic Growth Scrutiny Committee, and then that will go to Cabinet on the 7th. So we are pre-scrutinising both of those and look forward to that scrutiny function working effectively. But the actual report on the 22-23 budget and the medium-term financial plan will go to the Corporate Service and Economic Growth Scrutiny Committee, which will be actually for all members to attend if they wish, on the 7th of February. And then the following day, again having had the benefit of pre-scrutiny, it will go to Cabinet, including details of the provisional finance settlement, which I hope we have by then, plus the reserves and provisions. On the 23rd of February, the County Council will have a chance to look and hopefully agree on the budget. The settlement announcement dates are due on the provisional finance settlement around about December time, and in February, the final finance settlement will be announced by MHCLG. There is one additional point, though, in this, that you may recall that last budget time we did an online consultation with the public and a number of meetings with local area councils and with residents. That came in for a bit of a tickle from the opposition, that particular effort. But nevertheless, we got a very good response. I think it was around about 400 responses from the public, which was very useful in formulating the budget. I'm going to do exactly the same thing and look forward to seeing whether our political opponents do the same thing as well. Thank you.
Supplementary, Councillor Dale.
Thank you. Can you just note, in the question I asked you, I mentioned the new council, and a lot of councillors here will have no idea about the budget setting process and what is implicated in that. So you've got delivery of statutory services or non-statutory services. You've got the difference between capital and revenue spend, the use of reserves and the council's borrowing requirement. Also on top of that, you've got to look at very closely the delivery of local services. And I have to say I agree with Councillor Hill. And once again, I can only say that our staff work tremendously well. However, just to recall, I think Councillor Hill said at a meeting the other day, problems with enforcement. Enforcement is a big issue, for instance. We've also, as Councillor Oliver mentioned the other day, that he thought we maybe need a new gully sweeper in the West, which we do. It's amazing it's taken 4 years to think about that, but actually it's not the actual people. They're doing such a wonderful job, but there aren't enough of them. And it's because basically we're a rural area and there's other things that should be taken into consideration. Now, if the councillors here are going to put together...
Councillor Dale,
sorry,
are you getting to the question?
I am asking a question now.
OK, can you get to the question?
I'm just putting a bit of into the question so
I think
we
we've had
understand
quite a
what
lot
I'm
of
talking
context
about,
to it, Chair.
because I generally do budgets, right? So basically, the big issue I have here, if a lot of members are new, right, they won't understand anything about the local government budget setting and what the implications are and the service delivery. So please, I don't think we've had any presentation or briefing from any of our...
Can I ask again, Councillor Dale, can you please get to the question,
yes,
please?
Please, could you organise proper briefings for all members concerning the budget and how it relates, all the legal requirements that are required, and please can you organise that so everybody has an opportunity to have an input, a proper input into the budget setting process?
I think that's a very good supplementary question. I think it's very important that all members are fully aware of their responsibilities and their broad range of powers as directors of a multi-million pound organisation, which every one of us are. I think there should have been some induction training on the budget. I don't know who I should look at for that. Jackie, has there been an induction training on the budget yet? Yeah, so I think if we need to do that, I would very much like that to happen. So thank you for that suggestion. On local services, I honestly, I think, you know, having been to a number of different counties reasonably recently to see their level of grass cutting, their level of street cleaning, their level of litter picking, we are honestly well up in the league of keeping our county looking beautiful. So I suppose the only thing I would disagree with you was mentioning the previous speaker's name, which I won't do, in the hope that she doesn't pick that up and come back.
Question 11, Councillor Dale to Councillor Wimmelf. You need to turn your mic on, Councillor Dale.
It's a £1 billion turnover this council has, not millions and millions.
11, please.
Question 11, thank you. To Councillor Wearmouth, please. Please could you give this council an update on the County Hall refurbishment programme, and when will the work be completed?
Yes, I can. I should give it to you now. So this is extracted from a report provided by officers a short few weeks ago. So the following elements of the County Hall building have been completed to date. So we've got the external fabric of blocks 1, 2, 3 and 4, which is the bit that we're sitting in here. The internal refurbishment of blocks 2, 3 and 4, and the formation of the new Coroner's Court as well. Works are continuing on phase 1, and that includes the front of house, kitchen, restaurant, chamber, the reception area, and block 1, which is the block that we're sat in at the moment, this bit along the front. So, completion dates. Phase 1, kitchen, restaurant, chamber, end of September, i.e. end of this month. Block 1, top floor, end of September this month, and given that we're sitting in it, you can see that we're slightly ahead on that bit. Block 1, first floor, end of September. Block 1, ground floor, and the conference suite, end of October of this month. And then phase 2, reception area, end of November. The external fabrics works to blocks 5 and 6. The basement refurbishment of block 3. Changing rooms and shower areas will follow in January next year, and are expected to be completed by September next year. And we're considering what to do in terms of the internal refurbishment of blocks 5 and 6, which will probably take a little bit of time to consider how we're working in the new world of post-COVID, and what would be the optimal thing to do in that block, or 2 blocks.
Supplementary, Councillor Dale.
Thank you very much. What I think is everybody has concerns about is the actual cost overall. So the original plan, which was for the new headquarters to go to Ashington, at a cost of £32 million. This would have brought both a social and economic impact on the residents and businesses of Ashington, and would have helped towards the levelling up that this government is, well, it's the main agenda for this government. So that's the levelling up. So what I want to know is what social and economic impact will the refurbishment of County Hall have on the residents and businesses of Morpeth? And can you say, will it be value for money, good value for money?
Thank you for that. So I think that the forecast outturn cost for the project is around about 14.5 million, which is quite a modest sum, as you and I can see you nodding your head in agreement.
I've got the costs of the whole thing. So. 14
million is indeed less than either 80 million, 55 million, 30 million, however, whatever number of millions you want to make it, it's a lot less, certainly half than the number that you gave. In terms of the socio-economic impact and effect on Morpeth, I don't have that particularly to hand. I shall see if I can seek that out for you in due course. And then when it comes to Ashington, you know, we're sat here with an administration who has a really exciting agenda for Ashington. We've got the Northumberland line, which is about to, well, it is, in fact.
I'm sorry, that's not my question. I'm asking about the value for money. Thank you.
I'm simply answering your question, Councillor Dale, and I was really enjoying myself in doing so. So, in terms of the added value that we created in Ashington, it's quite considerable. No, and by 2023 or 2024, there'll be trains running back in Ashington. So, we've already started building on one of those phases in Portland Park. And you can see the building going up now. Fantastic new business, Home Bargains, that's going to be there. and creating jobs. Fantastic thing for Ashington. I believe that there's some exciting news coming up.
Are you going to drag this into order? Or?
Point of order. What I asked
Excuse me, Councillor Dickinson, can you not be rude to me? I think there was reference to socio-economic policy in Ashington, and I believe that Councillor Weirmouth is actually...
It was on...
Question was on Morpeth.
The question was on
Thank you, Chair, and I
Socioeconomic
appreciate that the former leader doesn't like this. Sorry, not the former leader yet. My bad. We've also...
Tony, I heard something.
All in good time.
We've all in good time, exactly. Yes, we've seen the text messages within
Okay,
your
Chair,
group.
I think we can call
Anyway,
that to an
I shall leave it there. Thank you very much.
Point of order. Can I ask that if we are going to be able to have question time, that actually the Cabinet member actually asks us the question and doesn't put out a whole ream of paperwork, because I can do the same.
Councillor Dale, I note your point. However, I think that all members need to remember we are asking a question and a supplementary, and we're answering them. And I think that members need to remember to get to the point of a supplementary question. And you might not like an answer, and the answers need to be brief as well. So we'll look forward to that for the next meeting, shall we? Point 7, to receive the minutes of the Cabinet meetings held on Tuesday the 13th of July, Tuesday the 3rd of August, and Tuesday the 17th of August 2021. Are there any comments or points on those? No, Councillor Hutchinson.
Thank you, Chair. It's really to say thank you. It's on page 30, item 3, and on 31 is point B. A list of 7 towns prioritised to prepare place plans for the by the application of the Borderlands do. And I'd like to thank the Cabinet very much for the Council for including Haltwhistle as one of these towns. It's great to hear that's going to happen. It's one of the most deprived areas in the county, and look forward to something happening there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hutchinson. With no further ado, I go to 7.1, and to approve the following resolution as it includes budget and policy framework matters requiring council approval. Minute number 14 of the 13th of July 2021 meeting relating to the Blythe Welding and Fabrication Training Centre. I think Councillor Renner Thompson wishes to say something.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. For those who don't know, this is our investment into a welding and fabrication training centre in Blythe. It's a total of £1.08 million with 650,000 for machinery, £335,000 for building work. It's a collaboration between ourselves, Advanced Northumberland, the Port of Blythe and Northumberland College. And it's part of our wider strategy to have alternative education going forward as opposed to just the traditional GCSE and A-level route. This is the first of many projects I'm looking to bring forward, increasing our vocational training offer in Northumberland so our young people can stay here rather than having to go further south into Tyne and Wear. So this is the first of many. I hope you see a few more.
Councillor Reid.
Thanks, Chair. I just need to declare an interest in that then. As a Director of Advance, I shan't be voting on this.
Thank you very much for that. I'm sure all the other Advance board members will do the same. So can I have a proposer of that minute, please? Yeah, Councillor Plojek and Councillor, seconded by the leader. Are we all agreed with that? Thank you very much. I've done that right, have I, Neil? Thank you. Makes a change. Point 8.1. Corporate Services to receive and consider minutes from the following committees. 8.1, pages 49 to 58, is the Corporate Services and Economic Growth Overview and Scrutiny Committee. And it would normally be Councillor Bourne, but I'm going to look to Councillor Dunn, I believe, is the Vice Chair of that committee. So I put you on the spot, haven't I? So I do apologise.
Yes, you have.
Yes, so
No
would you like to move the minutes of that first one you was attending?
I would like to move the minutes of the Corporate Service and Economic Growth Overview and Scrutiny Committee from pages 49 to 58.
Okay, I think this might be 57, 56, but
Sorry, I haven't got my glasses.
no, it's quite all right.
58.
Okay, can any comment on that? Councillor Robinson.
Thank you, Chair. Just page 50. I just want to ask if there's an update, really. Briefings would start with ward and town parish councils, ones that have been agreed by Cabinet. I say it has been. And then rolled out to the communities. The lead officers mentioned sessions to start over the summer and roll out in autumn. Now, you know, it took quite a bit of pushing to get my town into that. Not only did we get into that, we became one of the first towns to benefit from it. And I would hate to see any slippage to begin with, because that pushes everything else back. So have we got something a bit more less ambiguous than roll out in the autumn?
Wish to respond?
I can't. I would say that there is slippage, but it's not slippage caused by us. There is a very complex procedure that we have to follow, working with MHCLG and the Scottish Government, and so these things take time. But this programme will be delivered. It may slip slightly, but it is not of our making.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'd just like to point out, as a matter of sort of accuracy, the minutes of the 2nd of August do not list me as being present. I can assure members that I was present at both the 2nd and the 9th of August, the meeting that Councillor Grimshaw referred to earlier. Obviously, those minutes aren't available at the moment, but I did voice several concerns on the procedures at that time, and I look forward to members reviewing these minutes at the next full council meeting.
So, would you like to move the minutes for Monday the 2nd?
Yes, move the minutes for Monday the 2nd.
Thank you very much. Does anyone have any comments on those ones? No. Okay. Councillor Dickinson, I beg your pardon.
Sorry, just on page 52. So we've gone past that one, sorry. You don't mind nipping back one time, do you? It was just on reference to the members' working group to be set up to look at whistleblowing and the policy surrounding that, both for presumably elected members and members of staff. I just wondered if that was up and running or when it will be.
Yes. Well, we did have one meeting of the Members' Services Working Group. Did we? I'm trying to think back.
Sorry, Chair. It says that a working group will be to review the whistleblowing policy.
Chair, it wasn't specifically the whistleblowing policy. That might still be in process.
A future meeting.
Our future meetings, Chair, yes. The minutes of the Member Services Working Group are there at item 7 of this agenda.
Yeah, I think that will be coming at a future meeting, though. That item.
Thank you.
Did we not agree it at the members' working group meeting? We had a members' working group and it was discussed and we had a way forward.
Yes, I think probably easier if you.
Thank you. Through yourself, Chair. I think there's two issues here. The whistleblowing policy that the Corporate Services Scrutiny Committee, the paper was actually in relation to staff issues and it was considered as part of the workforce report. There was some confusion at the meeting where the chair of the committee asked for a report back on issues in relation to members and complaints that members wish to make. Those issues were considered at the Members' Services Working Group at the last meeting.
Thank you.
So that made that clear. Yeah. It certainly has for me, so thank you for asking that question. So now I'm looking to where I am. I'll be at Community in Place, overview and beg your pardon, Family and Children's Services. I'm getting ahead of myself. Councillor Daly.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to move the minutes of the Family and Children's Services Overview and Scrutiny Committee, which was held on Thursday, the 17th of June, and the minutes relate to pages 59 to 64 in our reports.
So I see any comments? No, I don't see any hands, so I'll move on to the next one, which is Community Place Overview and Scrutiny Committee, and I'll pass over to Councillor Mather.
Thanks, Chair. I would like to move the minutes from the Communities and Places OSC Committee, pages 65 to 80, meetings held on the 30th of June and the 4th of August.
Any comment or any hands raised for that? I cannot see any, so I'll then go over to, I've got the Audit Committee. Now, have people got those minutes? I'm not sure everyone does have those. I've skipped my own ones. I'll go back to it. Sorry, I'm all over the place today. You've thrown me. Right, it's Health and Wellbeing Overview and Scrutiny, page 81 to 92. Councillor Reid.
Thank you, Chair. I'll move the minutes of the Health and Wellbeing Overview and Scrutiny Board on the 26th of July, pages 81 to 88, and the 2nd of August, pages 89 to 92.
Any hands there? I can't see any, so I'll move over to Health and Wellbeing Board, page 93 to 100, and that's myself, and I'll just get to the page. And I'll move them for the meeting held on Thursday, the 8th of July, 2001. See no hands. Councillor Dale.
Yes, thank you. I just have to say that the amount of work that our staff have undertaken during the last year and a half with COVID-19 has been really impressive. And when you look at all these minutes and the amount of work and input and the ongoing work, I just think that this council needs to applaud them all for their the sense of responsibility, but the work has been relentless. And I think that we should all recall that actually over this time, the difficulties have been in the council, but these staff have moved on and worked so hard. And I think we all owe them a big gratitude and big thanks, because they've gone over what they should have done. They've been absolutely commendable.
Yes, I'm going to pass to the leader at this point, and I'll say something myself.
I think that's a very appropriate thing to raise at this stage, Councillor Mrs Dale, and I am grateful that you've done it. I agree with you completely that I think the staff, both the NHS, the Trust and the County Council staff, and all the volunteers as well, has been absolutely fantastic and helped us get through a really difficult time. And I'd actually like to thank all members as well who have played a part in their own communities, both allocating money where they have, helping with voluntary work, looking after people who needed their help. And throughout Northumberland, we have done magnificently over this last 14 months, and I'm immensely grateful, and I'm very pleased that you've raised this now, so thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dale. I'll just add, as well, current chair of the Health and Wellbeing Board, and I've only done 2 meetings, I think, and I know that Councillor Dodd chaired that as well during this important time. And I'm also, you know, we've seen the work. It's an unprecedented situation, which I don't think any of us really would have hoped to have seen at all. It's been, you know, been a terrible situation for us to deal with, but it's been dealt with such, you know, such brilliance and such dedication, and we all owe it, everyone who's been involved with that a deal of gratitude. And I think this council, as business chair, I'd like to put that on the record as well. Thank you. Okay, so I go to the next set of minutes, which is the Audit Committee minutes. And does everyone have a set of the Audit Committee minutes? Is the first thing I'm going to ask. I'm seeing Councillor Dickinson.
Yeah, can I just query, Chair, in relation to these minutes, because it is a significant committee that deals with some significant issues and other things, how this has happened in terms of receiving them today, rather than given time to digest?
Yes. Does anyone wish to answer on that one? I think there's just been some pressures with work, so I'm going to apologise as business chair on that front. and say we'll try to make sure that doesn't happen in future times.
I totally appreciate that, and staff need some leave, and you know,
yeah,
all of that. So can we defer these to the next committee meeting, just so, because I've been driving most of the day. So
are we happy that those minutes are deferred to a future meeting? I don't have a problem with that. It would be useful if the vice chair could present them as well, wouldn't it? So there we are. Right. Okay. Fine. Okay. So I'll move on to item 7, the Member Services Working Group, which was held on Wednesday, the 18th of August, and I'm going to go over to Councillor Sharp.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I would like to move the minutes of the Member Services Working Group held on Wednesday, the 18th of August, pages 101 and 106. And in doing so, I just want to point out the recommendations of the Members Working Group, particularly on the motion following and the reference to the Labour Group on the following parental leave policy. It's still the same policy with the Labour Group in, so that will probably need amending as part of the Working Group recommendation.
Yeah, I was going to raise that the policy in the back seems to be the same.
Yes, the page hasn't
but
been
which would
removed.
seem to be different to the nature of the conversation of that meeting.
Yes.
Chair, if I could just comment on, well, it's specifically page 103. The changes specified at the working group haven't been attended to as yet. I mean, the idea at the working group was that the recommendation is that full council adopt the policy subject to the 4 matters there as bullet points, but that is subject to the recommendations of the independent remuneration panel, and it's at that point really that those amendments would be made, because the IRP might have further comments to make on
so that would come in at that.
I'm happy to accept that, Chair.
Thank you. Likewise, thank you very much for that. Item 9 is we follow neatly into motion number 1. Councillor Dickinson.
Neatly and rightly so. So I'm going to propose our motion with an amendment, Chair. Bear with me, because nobody's kind of spoken to me since, so I'm kind of trying to go with what the committee may well have discussed, so bear with. At the bottom of page 3, last paragraph, where it says to adopt the parental leave policy drafted, and I just propose to put by the Member Services Working Group and leave everything below off.
I think I'm quite happy with that. Do we have a seconder for that? I'm going to go to Councillor Vilcek on that one.
Okay, so in proposing this motion, Chair, with its amendment, it's really straightforward. It's about diversity, funnily enough, which Councillor Sanson wishes to encourage as well. And it's about ensuring that any sex of working age, whether adoption, giving birth, pregnancy, whatever, doesn't prevent them from being a county councillor and representing their community. And it's about really just making it equal for any county councillor of a working age to come forward to represent their community and know that there is a policy in place which 40 other councils have adopted that allows them to function and have leave periods as any other employee would receive.
Councillor Vilcek, and then I'll go to Councillor Reid.
Yeah, so since the creation of this council in 2009, I'm the second pregnant member after Councillor Foster in 2011. I second the motion that was first drawn up by the LGA Labour Women's Task Force and modified by the Member Services Working Group to ensure women come forward in the future and stand for council positions, as we desperately need better representation across the political field. 32 councils, including Newcastle City Council, have adopted this motion, and a further 7 councils have adopted their own parental leave policy. Disappointingly, this is only 39 councils out of 333 councils in England and 39 out of the councils in the UK. But I'm sure we can all comfortably guess, out of the 398 principal councils in the UK, I do not have the figures for the 11,930 local councils in the UK, but I'm sure we can all confidently guess that the figures for adopting this motion, women-focused motion, will be slim. Northumberland County Council should be a shining example to all businesses and institutions across Northumberland, and presently a woman councillor is not entitled to any maternity leave or any support after having a baby. We need to empower and encourage women, parents and carers to become local councillors and take on leadership positions. I wholeheartedly support this motion and hope that members will vote to allow us to adopt the motion.
Thank you. I'm going to pass to Councillor Reid.
Thank you, Chair. Well, you know what it is? In over 30 years of recruiting candidates to stand for election, I can honestly say no one has ever asked me about parental leave. It has never been an issue. And if anybody, what people get involved in is usually through community things that have got themselves riled up. I'm astonished about, you know, I really am astonished about this. We are not employees. We have no rights. We don't have any terms and conditions of employment. You know why? Because we're not employed. Any one of us today could get up and go and not come back till March. And no one could say anything about where have you been or what you've done or why haven't you been here. We have the right not to attend for 6 months anyway. And if you think about it, how are you going to decide whether you're going to grant parental leave? Who's going to do it? If somebody wants 9 months off, say, you have to ask for an extension if you haven't turned up. And the only way you can get an extension is the whole council, all 67 of us, have to come to a council meeting, or those that attend, and then a report is put forward that this person hasn't attended for 6 months, and they now need another 3 months. So you have to say, oh, well, due to my personal circumstances, I was pregnant or my wife was pregnant. So the other 60 odd of us have got to sit in judgment of somebody. This is just, you don't need to do it. All you need to do is not turn up and tell people if you want to, oh, well, my wife's expecting a child, so I'm going to need to, you know, arrange things. But just think how onerous turning up for one meeting every 6 months is all you're required to do anyway. For God's sake. So anyway, how are we going to, if you pass this, how are you going to grant that parental leave, sorry? Do you have to turn up with a doctor's letter or something from the antenatal clinic or the postnatal clinic to say that you've given birth? Or are we going to require somebody to turn up with a birth certificate and say, well, this is why I need time off. Here's the birth certificate. Or are you just going to believe what somebody says? This is just Labour nonsense that just does my head in. There's absolutely no need to do this at all. And so what's happened is they've decided to have a female-focused policy and then discovered halfway through that actually that's discriminatory. You can't offer women maternal leave without offering paternal leave to male councillors. But can I just point out anyway, none of us are entitled to leave, are we? We're not. We do not fill a form in and send it to the chief executive saying, well, I'm off to Spain for a fortnight, because you don't need to. So the first bit of the motion is kind of about everybody, and then the last sentence that Councillor Dickinson changed. The last sentence says, to give all councillors an entitlement to parental leave after giving birth or adopting. But as far as I remember, men don't give birth. So that, changing that last sentence needs to be done, because what it says is parental leave after giving birth or adopting. So I've got several kids and I don't remember giving birth to any of them.
Are you there, Jeff?
Where?
Are you there with your speech, Jeff?
I could go on for hours. I've got.
Well, actually, you
12
can't
pages.
go on for hours.
But anyway, the only thing I would add then, if you want me to stop, is that the other thing I hate about this is what you're all saying you'll do. When you pass this, what you're saying you're going to do is, like good children, you're going to write to the LGA Labour group to say that, yes, we agree with you and we've passed this policy, aren't we good? Well, I'll tell you what, I'm not voting for it.
OK, just to surmise here, I've got Councillor Wearmouth with his hand. I've got Councillor Grimshaw with her hand up. I think I've also got Councillor Dickinson and Councillor Vilcek. Did you want to come in at the end to sum up?
Well, it was just to say, if Councillor Reid had read the motion properly, it says that parental leave must apply to parents regardless of their gender, and also cover adoption leave to support those parents who choose to adopt.
OK, you've made that point.
Why does it say giving birth then, and nothing else?
I think we can get back to any debate, can't we? I've also got Councillor Dale with a hand up. Councillor Dickinson, did you have your hand up, or was it to make a...
Well, I don't wish to comment now because I'll be closing the debate.
Unless
you want me to, and I'm happy to close it down.
So I'll speak. Let Councillor Wearmouth in, then Councillor Grimshaw. Councillor Wearmouth.
Thank you, Chair. Just to make sure I understand, and that people who might be operating under this understand, will people, in picking up Councillor Reid's point, will people still need to get that extension beyond 6 months? That's absolutely the case. Just to make sure that people understand and they don't go away for 9 months or whatever. It has to come to
it was discussed at the working group, but I'll let Neil come in here to explain.
Yeah, I can confirm, Chair, that is the legislation and that doesn't change.
Councillor Grimshaw.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I'm absolutely appalled as our senior members sitting in this chamber are actually laughing at Councillor Reid's comment. I think it's derogatory, disgusting in the 21st century that we're moving back, and to put a perfectly wonderful motion in front of people here today is absolutely amazing, because we've got to move to the future. And actually, and I'm not being critical or disrespectful, but there are women who now say they are transgendered and to men have given birth, so I contradict that comment. But I do think that it's absolutely disgusting people sitting here laughing at the proposal because we're in the 21st century.
Okay, Councillor, thank you for that. Councillor Dale.
Thank you. Can I just pick up one or two things that people have said?
Can you put your microphone on?
Was on. Sorry. Just going back to the report, I think what's been put forward is just another add-on to say we want more women in politics. And I think that's quite fair. And, you know, I looked at the figures. The Tories, Conservatives, have got 34 positions and only 5 are women. The Labour Party have got 21 and they've got 13 women. And the others, which there's a few of others about, which I am one, there's 4 of us who are women. And actually, that's not representative of the county. And if I said to you, when I first became a councillor, it was 27, 28 years ago, I would like to have been a councillor beforehand. But I was having children, and I couldn't just abandon them. And there are a lot of people here who can't abandon their children. And actually not turn up is not good enough for somebody. I wouldn't dream of saying that. I've heard councillors sitting there saying, you haven't been here for 6 months, you're going to be checked out, you haven't done this, you haven't done that. And actually, They need a proper reason why they don't turn up. And this is a very good reason. And if that brings more women into politics, then good. I don't care what Councillor Reid has said, that it's rubbish. It's not. It's an add-on to make people want to take an interest. And if you're a volunteer, you can just go and just say, sorry, I can't do it. But if you're a county councillor, or as district as people were before, you have a responsibility to the people. And just to not turn up is not actually good enough. Not for me, I'm sorry. So I just think we need to look back and say, well, really what we need is more women in politics. And certainly some parties do too. They want a lot more. And I think, you know, as a woman, I'm an independent. I've been here a long time. I can stand up and I know what I'm talking about. But actually we want younger people in. And they might be childbearing age. But to think that it doesn't matter that they could have time off to have a child, or if you're going to adopt, the father or whoever can take time off. I think that's a responsible way forward. And let's get more women in, please, into this room. It would be great to see more women. And we've got one cabinet member. We've actually got a chief exec who is a woman. Great, first time. And I think that's really good. I can't remember being a woman being a chair of the council. Not chair, sorry, leader of the council. Maybe that'll come. But we do need more women in politics. And actually, by agreeing this motion, it is a way forward. So I'll support it.
Thank you, Councillor Dow. Got Councillor Foster and then Councillor Shelby.
Thank you, Chair. A colleague may not have been approached by anyone who's wanting to stand, whatever, asking about parental leave. But I can't remember the last time I applied for a job and asked about their parental leave policy as part of my interview. So, to be honest, that comment really just doesn't stand. But for a long time in the general workplace, I'm not just talking about the county council here, I'm talking about across the board, it was really hard for a woman to get into a high power position in case she got pregnant. And that was the case for a long, long time. And I know things have moved on since then. How far is questionable, but things have moved on. And the council need to move on and come into the 21st century. At the end of the day, why can't women have these maternity rights? Why can't men have these paternity rights? But also, if a couple decide, once one has been elected or both have been elected, that they'd like to go down the adoption route, it's really useful to know the county council's policy when they're actually looking at that decision. It's a big decision. You want all the information you can at your fingertips, because once you've made that decision and you go ahead, it is a big thing. So having that policy there, to me, is very important. And it certainly does, as Councillor Dale says, it encourages more women into politics, which is not a bad thing. It will hopefully encourage more younger people into politics. I'm very proud that in the elections this year, the Labour group actually got a number of much younger councillors coming through. And it's fantastic because in the past, it has been an ageing council. The number of councillors here who are older has been higher. So it's nice to see younger people coming in, but those younger people are the ones who are more likely to want to have a family. So having this policy, to me, is a positive move forwards, and I wholeheartedly support it. And certainly as a person, a councillor, who actually was pregnant in 2011 at this council, yeah, I fully support it, because knowing more at the time, having that policy there may well have helped me. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, I got my order wrong, so I'm going to go Councillor Hutchinson, then Councillor Shelvin, then Councillor Murphy, and then Councillor Dodd. Councillor Hutchinson.
I've noticed since we've gone on to live YouTube, there's a lot of, from most councillors anyway, a lot of grandstanding. and just love the sound of their own voice. On this, basically, this motion, I've got nothing really against it at all. But I think one problem you're going to have at the next election is getting anyone to stand. Because if anybody's watching all this rubbish that's going on today, and has done since we've been live streaming, nobody will stand, male or female. Thank you.
Councillor Ezel-Shelvin.
Thank you, Barry. I think this motion brings councillors in line with normal members of the staff. But I think the Labour members and also Councillor Dale is unnecessarily spinning it as though it is some kind of an instrument to bring more women into politics. I think that's a very. I'm really ashamed to get this kind of things thrown at us in this council. It requires. I mean, we all believe in equality. We all believe in equality. For example, Councillor Dale was quoting how many women are there in each party. Let me turn the table on you. I'm the only first minority councillor of this council, and that comes from Conservative Party. And that came not because Conservative Party had some special provisions for minorities. It has to be an organic growth. Let me give examples, some more examples to the nonsense that's being spouted out here. You go to university, any university, I work in a university, go to any engineering department, look around, there are more boys than girls. Go to computer science department, there are more boys, far more boys than girls. Why it is happening? Because there are some organic reasons for girls not preferring to do engineering. So there are so many factors that are involved in bringing in more women into politics, into the council, and this thing, this instrument, this motion may or may not help. There are lots of larger issues. So I would like to look at this motion not in terms of an instrument or a tool to bring in more women, more minorities, more, that one. No, what it says is that simply it brings councillors at par with the council staff. That's all it's doing. So let us just remove all these women thing or minority thing, remove it, and just look at it from the merits and demerits, and then we will allow it. Thank you.
Worst own enemy. Councillor Dodd. I beg your pardon. Councillor Murphy, and I'll come to Councillor Dodd.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to make a comment on the adoption part of this resolution, which I absolutely support. I assess adopters, that's my job. And part of assessing adopters is looking at how supportive their employers are and what kind of leave they're entitled to and what kind of culture there is in their workplace. And I think it's astonishing that if we look at Councillor Reid's attitude, if we look at the private sector, they're incredibly supportive. I work with so many adopters where their employers are very, very forward thinking. And I think it's a real shame if a local authority, if I was assessing a councillor who was working in a culture where it was considered ridiculous to even consider having proper policies that fit the 21st century, that they would actually struggle in terms of being able to commit to their child and their child's future. And I just think as local authority members, elected members, we should be trailblazers. We should be leading the way, not sitting at the back saying, well, that's a ridiculous idea. We don't want progress. We're not interested in progress. And I think we need to remember that whilst women birth the children, all of society benefits from the children. If women don't give birth, our societies die out. Italy has a crisis with its population. The Western world has a crisis with population. We have to make it easy for families to survive in this world. So I wholeheartedly support my colleague's motion. Thank you.
Councillor Dodd.
Yes, Chair. I got elected here in 2001. And the average age of the councillor then was 72. So there has been change.
There's also been change to the committee system that they then ran. We now have a cabinet and scrutiny system. So the whole thing's changed. And then, you know, electronics has changed. We now communicate on email. And over this last 2 years, we've seen virtual meetings and, you know, platforms being used for different reasons. So that the whole animal has changed. Maybe we need to look at the 6-month rule that was probably brought out decades ago when people had to attend meetings. Now we do other things as well as attend meetings. So maybe that needs to be looked at in a constitutional way or in a fair way. And in my 30 years of being around here as a district councillor and then a county councillor, I've only ever seen the 6-month rule used or abused once. And unfortunately, Jeff, I remind you that it was under your tenure and you called the meeting to save someone. Thank you, Chair.
Just, okay, there's only 2 more hands I've seen, which Councillor Reid's been referred to a few times, so I will allow him to speak a second time, and then I'll go to Councillor Dickinson to sum up. But I just think on the 6-month rule, I think that's something which would be out of our hands, would be something that'd have to do in Westminster, am I right in thinking? Thank you. Okay, so because of you being referred to a few times,
Chair.
I will let you speak, Councillor Reid.
For clarification, really, all I'm saying is you can't adopt a policy when you have no other policies. We are not employees. We do not have a contract of employment. We've got no recourse to have our hours changed, or we cannot take leave, never mind parental leave. I am all for getting as diverse a council as you possibly can. And if someone said to me, Jeff, I'd love to stand, but I'm worried that if I start a family, I would say, well, being a councillor is a perfect way of actually living your family life around the thing you do. Because you can actually, most of what we do is done at the dining room table when you're reading reports. So, you know, you can dip in and out. If you've got to go and pick your kids up from school, you can. We have no hours. There are no employment rules for us. We signed one piece of paper when we got elected, which was we accept the office. So what I'm annoyed about is that there's somebody trying to turn local politicians into professional politicians instead of the community activists we actually are. That's all I'm saying. I am against this motion because it is totally unnecessary. Any one of us who wanted to take up parental duties could, if they wanted to, come in next time and say, well, actually, my partner's pregnant or I'm pregnant, and in March, I'm going to have to not be here for 5 months. Announce it to the world. Absolutely fantastic. You don't need a policy to do that. The policy already exists. And what you can't do is go against the law. And what the law says is you don't have to turn up for 6 months, but if you haven't been for 6 months, the full council, if you ask for an extension, the full council has to decide. I think it's a simple majority, Neil, but it's still the full council. So your whole private business of either adoption or, you know, family troubles or whatever is going to have to be written on a piece of paper, and you lot, all of us, are then going to have to decide whether that person should have an extension or not. I think that's more of an intrusion than an advantage. At the moment, the law says you don't need to turn up for 6 months. So and if somebody wants to then say, well, we're about to become a family, So I'm going to need some time out. Then fine. There isn't anything any of us can do about it. And there's no, you can't say you can't do it. Whereas this, you're starting to judge people when there's absolutely no need to do it. Thank you.
Councillor Dickinson, to sum up, I think we've all had a slight bite of the cherry if you wanted it.
And how to sum up that, but I think, you know, said councillor's contribution is exactly why this policy is required and exactly why younger, more professional people should be brought in to be county councillors. If you want to open a bank account, if you want car insurance, options on there now are county councillors. You are seen as employed whether you like it or not, Jeff. And simply not turning up is not an option for my group. And actually, they take their role very seriously. And this is about equality across the council. And it's a real shame that the biggest laugh that's been had in this chamber today was at somebody making comments, derogatory comments actually, about birth, about parents, about equality, and about different types of councillors coming forward. And the reason Councillor Reid may well only have 3 members is because of that performance there today. And it could be the case that if motions like this are presented and supported and policies are in place, that he could grow from 3 councillors in the future. But I just think anyone that's watched that spectacle today of the contribution that's been made, the laughter from the top table about something as simple as equality, when we have bent over backwards to change this motion and remove all Labour references so it could be supported by all. We withdrew it from the previous council so it could go at the Member Services Working Group. We've had cross-party work on it. It's been through the HR process, been through the legal process, and here we are. We've come back with a motion that should be palatable for all, and that's the type of performance we have. And I'd like a name vote, Chair.
I've just got Neil would like to say something from the legal point of view.
Thank you, Chair. It was just a bit of clarification for the minutes, really. So I believe your amendment, Councillor Dickinson, if I can just clarify, adopted the recommendations of the Member Services Working Group, which is an important point. It did, yes.
Yes, it did. It did endorse the cross-party member working group recommendations.
Excellent. Thank you, Chair. I mean, if it assists with the wording for the minutes, the beginning of the motion stated to adopt the parental leave policy in accordance with the recommendations of the Member Services Working Group. Would that be acceptable? Thank you, Councillor.
Yeah.
Hey, and the other thing, you've asked for a name vote. I think I need 20% of you, or is it 25, to agree to a name vote? Can we agree to that?
Shall I just check, Chair?
I'm sure that's enough.
It's 9 members.
9 members, which is done.
9 members.
Okay, so we'll move to the named vote then. Do you want to take the mic, Neil?
Yes, Chair. Just give me a minute. I'll just settle.
Needs to sort out.
Karen, just keep me right on members who aren't here. I might read out the odd member who isn't here.
So I've got who's not here.
Yeah, I've made a note, so that's fine. Okay, Chair. Okay, Chair. So I'll read out each member.
Can we stop having little conversations, everyone? Not to be too rude.
Thank you, Chair. I'll read out the name of each member present and ask if they are in agreement or otherwise with the motion as amended put forward by Councillor Dickinson. So, Councillor Ball.
For.
Councillor Bourne is not here. Councillor Bainan. Councillor Bowman.
For.
Councillor Bridges is not here. Councillor Carr.
For.
Councillor Carty.
For.
Councillor Castle. Councillor Sesford. He's not here. Councillor Clark. Councillor Dale.
4.
Councillor Daly.
4.
Councillor Darwin. Councillor Dickinson.
4.
Councillor Dodd.
4.
Councillor Dunbar.
4.
Councillor Dunn. Councillor Ezel-Shalvin.
4.
Councillor Ferguson.
4.
Councillor Flux.
4.
Councillor Foster.
4.
Councillor Gallagher is not here. Not here. Councillor Grimshaw.
4.
Councillor Hardy.
4.
Councillor Hill.
4.
Councillor Homer is not here. Councillor Horncastle.
4.
Councillor Humphrey. Councillor Hunter.
Abstain.
Okay, abstain. Councillor Hutchinson.
4.
Councillor Jackson. Not here. Councillor Jones.
4.
Councillor Kennedy.
4.
Councillor Lang.
4.
Councillor Lee.
Against.
Councillor Mather.
4.
Councillor Morford.
4.
Councillor Murphy. Councillor Nisbet.
4.
Councillor Oliver isn't here. Councillor Parry.
4.
Councillor Patterson.
4.
Councillor Pauschke.
4.
Councillor Purvis.
4.
Councillor Reid. Councillor Renner-Thompson.
4.
Councillor Richardson.
4.
Councillor Riddle.
4.
Councillor Robinson.
4.
Councillor Sanderson. Councillor Scott. That's A.
4.
Scott. Councillor P. Scott.
4.
Councillor Seymour. Councillor Sharp.
4.
Councillor Simpson.
4.
Councillor Stewart. Councillor Swinbank.
4.
Councillor Swinburne.
4.
Councillor Taylor.
4.
Councillor Thorne.
4.
Councillor Towns.
4.
Councillor Waddell.
4.
Councillor Wallace.
4.
Councillor Watson. That's A. Watson.
4.
Councillor J. Watson.
4.
Councillor Wearmouth.
4.
Councillor Vilcek.
4.
Just a few moments to count those, Chair.
Thank you very much. Are you all for? Okay, Neil.
Thank you, Chair. That's 57 in support of the motion, 2 against and 1 abstention. That's passed.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Thank you. I'll move on to the next motion, which is from Councillor Hutchinson.
Thank you, Chair. I sincerely hope this one won't be as controversial as the last one. Thank you, Councillor. First of all, I'd like to make a small amendment to it. The 75 years should be 70 years. We'd hope she does last another 5 years after that, but here goes. The Queen's Platinum Jubilee, marking 70 years of being our reigning monarch, is to be celebrated on the weekend of the 3rd to the 6th of June next year. Many of the county's residents and communities will wish to celebrate this remarkable achievement, and to help them do this, I propose that Northumberland County Council resolves to waive road closure fees for one-day events on one occasion only, organised by town and parish councils held during that weekend. Thank you. And we'll look for a seconder.
Okay, do we have a seconder?
Yes, got a seconder.
Does Councillor Castle wish to second it?
I will second it. May I make a comment? Why not do? I know that some of my colleagues will wish I didn't make it, but I'm going to. The Town and Police Clauses Act 1847, Section 21, does in fact permit processions to take place without any charge. Now, many of these events, and there will be events that aren't processions, but some of these events will be processions which I believe in themselves will be free of charge. That's my understanding of the law. I just make that comment in seconding this excellent proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to talk on this? I've got Councillor, I'll go for Councillor Dale and then Councillor Hill.
Thank you. Can I just, I think it's a very good motion. Thank you very much for putting it forward. I would just like to add one thing, that maybe we could consider the use of our members' small scheme allowance, because it would be helpful if, say, we could give just £1,000, or it could be under discussion, to use on such an event to help our parish councils, or actually our local communities. It doesn't have to be the town and parish councils who are actually organising such an event. So I think two things. One is about the actual funding from our member small scheme allowance, and we can find out how much we could spend. On the other thing is that on one occasion organised by town and parish councils. I don't actually have a town and parish councillor organising anything. However, there are voluntary groups who are organising events. So it would just be a thought whether you could reword that to make sure that communities are not put off because they are not town and parish councils. So just could you have a look at that more closely, please?
Did Councillor Hutchinson want to respond to that point? I'll get back to everyone on the...
I'm sorry, I'm not prepared to reword that. The reason it was worded that way was not to restrict things happening, but to control what was happening. If it was open for anybody, we could have every street in Morpeth closed, for instance. So restricting it to two town or parish councils, I think, is a safer way to play it. And also to have one-day events for one occasion. They've got to apply. It needn't be them that actually organises it. They could have some working group or some other group could organise it, but the town or parish council should be the one who applies for it. Thanks.
Councillor Hill.
Thank you, Chair. I was actually going to make that point, but you don't want to restrict organisations, that you don't want to leave it open to all people, maybe on a commercial basis, but you don't want to restrict it. So I was just going to suggest something, you know, organised or expressly approved by town parish councils, just some way that, as Councillor Dale says, we could fit in, you know, maybe a charity organisation or somebody that's doing a good event, and it should be, but without, you know, making it open to everyone. So if town and parish councils expressly approve it, maybe for the exemption scheme or something like that. But I think I fully support the motion.
Again, it's not to really restrict anything like that, and anyone can organise something, but town or parish councils, it has to go through them to actually apply. So you wouldn't have a lot of applications from one town or one parish. There'd be some organisation or something would have to go through, or they would have to go through the town and parish council.
So they would just advertise if anyone's wanting to do an event, go through the town parish council, and they would mention to them, we've got this exemption. Yeah, now that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah, right. That's the idea anyway.
I've got
that's if it's approved.
Got Councillor Reid, then Councillor Dickinson.
Well, I'm going to get shot down again, aren't I? Never mind. I mean, this is, as Councillor Castle says, the Town and Police Closures Act 1847, Section 21, closures are free. So I'm not certain why this motion needs to be here or passed or voted on. What it says is public processions, rejoicing or illuminations already free of charge. That's just a straight lift off our page on our council website. So, you know, it didn't take much research to find that out. So I'm not certain what this does when it's already free. But if it's the other thing, which is the Road Traffic Regulation Act 1984, Section 16A, it's £550. Now, £550 is actually, most of it, is to put an advert in the press. So what we're being asked to do is write a blank cheque for the council to put closure orders in the paper. So I think I would rather have had a motion that said the council should write to the press than say we think you should carry these adverts for free as it's such a special occasion. Now, the other thing about this, there's 157 parish councils in Northumberland. So if you said 100 of them are organised enough to want to do something, and every one of them came to us for one of these road closures, that's £500,000. £500,000 for road closures for events. I would rather have that £500, that £500,000 divided up between the area councils, and each of them be given £100,000 and say, organise, you know, have a scheme where community groups can come to you with a plan for how they want to celebrate this, rather than give it to the press barons. But, you know, I know you're all going to vote against me, so that's, I've just got to have me say it. So I think this is just grandstanding at its worst. I think it's even more grandstanding than the last one, actually. So you might want to say, oh, well, come on, Jeff, you know, it helps. Well, the town council that I sit on has got over £500,000 in its balances. So asking the county to waive 550 quid, if that's the route that we decide to go on, unless we're going to say all of these things are going to be rejoicing as defined in the Town and Police Clauses Act 1847, Section 21, and they're all free anyway, and it's not just one, it could be hundreds.
Councillor Dickinson. Are you finished, Councillor Reid?
Well, I could go on, but obviously you want me to show.
Try to...
Well, and he flips into something else, which is quite sensible. And one of my questions was going to be around the estimated cost must be around £500,000 and I just wondered where we were going to get that from if everybody came forward. I also agree with Councillor Hill and Dale around some community organisations operate very, very well in our communities all the time and have only recently had to pay for these closures. And actually, if they are on behalf of town and parish councils, who are often quite small and don't function in that way to hold events, asked to carry out a community celebration, which we welcome, can they also apply for this fund? And can the monitoring officer confirm, my fellow colleague, Councillor Castle's obviously expressed it very, very clearly with very clear years and sections, as he always does. But can we clarify whether communities celebrating Jubilee events and such, free of charge, actually don't have to pay for road closures anyway? So it could be much more than £500,000.
Councillor, sorry, Neil, could you expand on that for us?
I can to a certain degree, Chair. Obviously, there are two powers that have been mentioned that can deal with road closures, processions. The circumstances of the event will determine which one it falls into. I believe Councillor Castle is right. I think the town police and town closures procedure is free, and there are charges for the Road Traffic Regulation Act. Other than that, I can't really comment. It very much depends on the nature of each event.
So, if I may, Chair, in that instance, a Jubilee event would come under that category.
Sorry, Councillor, which category?
Rejoicing free of charge in the community.
Well, as I say, Chair, the specific circumstances of the event will determine whether it fits within the wording of the legislation for the Police and Town Closures Act or the Road Traffic Regulation Act. It's not really possible now to go into the intricacies of that, but I know there are two separate procedures for it. And I'm not in a, not having the legislation in front of me or having researched it, I can't really comment on whether particular events that members are asking about.
I fully appreciate, Chair, that we can't all be as wise as Councillor Castle, but a suggestion for the leader, if I may. I don't know if you... Do you want to? Oh, sorry. I was just going to suggest, leader, I don't know if you wish to send it somewhere and bring it back, considering it's next year, and then we can look at the finances and criteria.
Well, I
think that might be. Yeah, I'm going to let Councillor Sanderson come in, and I might come back to you for Councillor Dodd and Councillor.
Yeah, I mean, what I would say is that this is an effort for the council as a whole to applaud and to celebrate the Jubilee. I think because we haven't had definitive legal advice today, I think it would be wise for us to get that. And it would be very much our intention to bring this back to the next full council meeting, having carried out that work, because certainly the indication is that we wouldn't be talking about anything like that amount of money that's been raised. But I want to get it right and make sure that it's done in an appropriate way. So my recommendation, if it's okay with the proposer, would be to just temporarily withdraw this and bring it back next time.
I'm going to ask Councillor Hutchinson to do that, and I'll go. Well, I'll go to Councillor Dodd and then Councillor Swinburne because they had their hands up, and then I'll ask Councillor Hutchinson what he wants to do.
Yes, Councillor Darwin and I are both town council members at Ponteland, and we had a meeting last week about this very subject. And what a lot of you may not know is that there's a beacon lighting on the Thursday night before this weekend of celebration. I think we're 9:45 where we're going to light a beacon. So we're sort of semi ahead of the game, but I do agree that we all agree the gist of this, but it's the logistics and the potential of how much or whatever will come. So I'm quite happy that it is deferred. And for a bit of grandstanding around Ponteland, we had a look at the brand new excellent facility of the leisure centre and the new school where we're hoping to have the celebrations at Ponteland. Thank you for that grandstand. And the library.
I'll bring in Councillor Swinburne and I'll go back to Councillor Hutchinson.
Thank you for that, Chair. But just to point out, Councillor Reid mentioned if it was 100 councils at £550, that's actually 55,000 and probably indicative of why we're running the council and the Lib Dems and Labour aren't. Thank you.
Thank you very much for pointing that one out, Councillor Swinburne. Councillor Hutchinson.
Thank you, Chairman. I honestly didn't think this would be as controversial, but I am willing to withdraw it from this particular meeting and bring it back. I would like, excuse me, I'd like it to come back to the next full council meeting to give groups plenty of time to organise things like this. As Councillor Dodd said, Ponteland's ahead of the game. They've started already. And it was just basically to assist smaller areas. I'm not sure how much Blythe gets as a precept. About, what is it, 500,000 or something like that, Jeff? Is it?
Blythe's £1 million a year.
Million. Well, my local parish council gets 2,000. So the difference on that and all the other small councils, Whistle Town Council, I think they get about 100,000. So it's horses for courses. But I'm perfectly willing for it to come back to the next actual full council meeting with average costings or possible costings. I don't envisage every parish or every community to want to do this anyway. A lot of my smaller parishes won't want to, so I don't think every parish will. But fair enough, we'll bring it back to the next meeting. Thanks.
Okay, and Councillor Castle seconding it. I'm going.
Yes, I will accept that. I just wanted to say as well, of course, that if, for example, Remembrance Sunday, there is a parade through my town, there are no charges put to anyone for that. It's exactly what it's supposed to be. This is what I thought this would fall into, that kind of category. But we do need legal advice. And I could also say that in my town, there is a working group which is actually well ahead of the game at the moment, thinking of things that it can and will do. But the town council would be the body in my town to come forward and ask for a road closure. But for example, the marketplace is a highway, and there might not be a procession through the marketplace, but there'll be some form of event, no doubt, which would probably require a road closure. Thank you.
Sanderson?
Can I just pick up on that point very quickly about Remembrance Sunday? That is actually the policy of this administration to not charge for those road closures. So we could, but we don't.
Okay. I'm going to speak now as a business chair, and I'm going to look back at our first motion, which came here 2 months ago, and we brought back, we went and reviewed, and I think that worked pretty well in terms of finishing and, you know, making something which nearly all the members of this council were happy with. So I'm going to propose, I'm quite happy that we withdraw this and that some sort of working group or appropriate place looks at this, and we definitely come back in November, because I think you say that the clocks will be ticking by then, to have that on here. But I'm sure all town councils, parish councils, community groups are looking already. I know mine is, and then Councillor Castle has pointed out Annick and Ponteland have been looking, and I'm sure all others have been as well. So are we happy that that's withdrawn? Agreed. Thank you very much.
Chairman, could I just say, I don't think it'd be right to have a working group. I think possibly the portfolio holder and other highways representatives, officers, look at it and try and...
Whatever the scenario is on sorting it out, I'm sure we can sort out behind the scenes and bring back as appropriate. I'm sure we're happy to talk to all parties about that and all. And
Thank you.
On a cross-party basis. Whatever's the most appropriate thing, we'll do. Okay, I'm going to go to point 10 on the agenda. Report the Interim Executive Director of Local Services and Regeneration, Northumberland Line, and to seek council confirmation seek confirmation from the council under section 239 of the Local Government Act 1972 for the continuation of the formal process associated with the Transport Works Act order application subject to the Secretary of State on the 26th of May 2021 in connection with the Northumberland Line project, page 111. Okay, and is it Rick or what Wojciech starting on this one?
Yeah, I just would like to highlight it's purely procedural and legal matter, so I would propose that we move the recommendation as it stands, unless someone has got any comments or questions.
Councillor Ball has indicated to me.
Yeah, can I just have some clarification, please, with regards to this Works Act order? I'm all for the Ashton, Blythe and Tyne line, but I would just like to clarify. We had a public meeting in Ashton Central with regards to the underpass that's proposed there. Will it continue that there will be a separate planning permission that will go to planning each and every one of the 22 bridges or underpasses, or any that do have public concerns, and that this isn't just a way of sweeping any objections or concerns under the carpet?
I know we've got something going to the planning committee next week, which I'm
that's
sure you're very well aware of.
Yeah.
So I presume all planning applications would have to be go through the normal process, but I'm going to pass over. Yeah, I think
That's
I've
good to hear
answered
for the
that one.
residents. Thank you.
And I'm being careful not to mention anything because I'm on that committee with you as next week. So we've got the recommendation that has been proposed. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Wearmouth is seconding. Are we all happy with that? Agreed. Thank you. Okay, I'll go back to the agenda and I'll go to point 11, report of the Head of Democratic and Electoral Services and Deputy Monitoring Officer, protocol for the appointment of honorary aldermen and alderwomen and for free men and free women of Northumberland County Council. That's page 123. I'll pass over to the leader.
Thank you very much. I want to thank, to begin with, Jackie Roll, who's done an enormous amount of work on this. It's something that I'm very keen that we get underway, but I wanted to try and run it past all the group leaders before we got to today, and that's happened. I think all of the points that have been made have been incorporated into this final version. So I'm hoping that we can just proceed with this and get to work. It will be done on an all-party basis. It's not some way of kind of this administration sort of honouring people that we like. It's not that at all. This is about making sure that everyone has a say, and those people who have done outstanding service for the community or have done long service for the council are acknowledged. But thank you to Jackie for all the work.
I didn't know if Councillor Sanderson needed a seconder for the recommendations on the report, but I'm happy to do that. And actually, I'm just want to say thank you for including everybody, because I think everybody's opinions have been included in here. And I think it's quite a comprehensive review of the title, and it is a honorary position on both in terms of the alderman, woman, and the free man or free woman. And it is a special thing to be given out, and I think this sets out an outline process to do that, and I think everyone's been consulted, so I'm happy to second the recommendations in the report.
Taking that as proposed by Councillor Sanderson and seconded by Councillor Dickinson. Councillor Reid.
Yeah, I indicated so I could second it as well. It's it's a good joint piece of work. But what I would say, I think that the leader should have been a bit more ambitious. It's kind of, we're going to put this in front. It needs to be a special meeting, so we're going to put it in front of another meeting. I understand why, but this is this is an important thing, and this is a thing that an honour that people will want. And I think we should perhaps use some of the underspend and the expenses that we didn't claim while we were locked in lockdown to strike a medal or make it something, because that's what it is. It's important. So I wouldn't want to, having gone all the bother of getting it right, I wouldn't like just to have kind of, people turning up for 20 minutes at a, like a graduation ceremony, the first one. I would like to see, as I say, make something of it, have a medal struck or something, because I don't think it'll be, to get 100 medals and keep them in stock, I don't think that's going to kill us. So that would be a good piece of work, all working together. Everything we've said has been taken, and if it hasn't been accepted, it's been explained why. I think it's been a good example of working together, but I think we should make more of it.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's been a good piece of work. And I thank Councillor Sanderson for inviting, myself and other leaders of other groups to offer opinions, because it has moved slightly with what the original proposal was. They're not as strict around saying, oh, it must be this and it must be that and it must be this length of time. It was more about the principle of of people providing great service to the county of Northumberland, and I'm really pleased with that. I think it's a much more rounded and a much more balanced solution that's been arrived at, and I think and all the comments that have been put in by each of the leaders has been helpful. But I support what Jeff Reid said, actually, which is surprising because nobody else supported him today on anything. Is that something tangible should be given? You know, whether it be a sash or a medal or even a chain. But I'm only joking. Something that is tangible, not a cheap certificate, something tangible. If it is a certificate, something that is of value that somebody can really feel as though they have achieved something. So, let's give it a little bit of budget as well. So it is actually something, that actually means something to people. Thank you.
Councillor Hill, and then I think I'll probably go back to Councillor Sanderson.
Thank you. I don't want to do the Jeff Reid grumpy lone voice rule, and I'm not against this per se, or any honour system and so on. I just do think we need to be aware that I think any members of the public watching this or seeing these papers might think to themselves, hasn't that council got better things to discuss and talk about? The members of the public might think, well, councillors talking about awarding titles to themselves, they're not volunteers, they get an allowance. They might say, isn't it rewarding enough to have the privilege of serving your community and the sense of reward when things are achieved for individual residents or the areas? So I just do think probably the public wouldn't be as pleased about it as some members of this council. It's also a danger in any patronage that, in the context of this council, conversations that might happen, such as, oh, Councillor X, I'm sorry you're not standing in the next election. I'd like to nominate you to be an honorary freeman or alderman or whatever. Oh, thank you very much. Oh, how are you voting in the next budget meeting? Now, there are obviously councillors. There are councillors who would say, I'm not for sale, my vote's not for sale. But we know over the years there's many councils that will say that are bought in this way. So I think we need to be cautious about any gift of patronage. I'd also, I see the criteria regarding sort of 20 years, and I'd sort of be looking for some reassurance that the criteria would really recognise a significant and outstanding contribution rather than, somebody that's hung around long enough being mediocre and got this honorary. So a reassurance from this group that have met that it really would mark somebody that's really made a difference. And my final point is, as I say, I think the most rewarding aspect of being a councillor is just doing stuff rather than getting any sort of title. And I think the kind of people that obsess over these things and getting MBEs and freemen and aldermen and things just need to maybe give themselves a bit of a shake.
I'll go to Councillor Morfitt because I haven't heard from the Green Party, and then I'll go back to Councillor Sanderson.
Thank you, Chair. I think there's a tiny bit of clarification required around the nomination process for aldermen and alderwomen. In terms of nominating free men and free women, it's clear. It says nominations are made by serving councillors and group leaders have to make a unanimous decision. But with aldermen and alderwomen, it doesn't state who the nominations can come from, and it says that if there is a sufficient degree of support, then the process will continue, but it doesn't. That's quite a vague term. Does it have to be unanimous or not?
I'm going to go past to Councillor Sanderson, who might be able to.
Thank you very much. Well, what I would say is there are these two different schemes. One is to recognise long service or people that have hung around long enough and been proved to be mediocre. That's going to be decided. That's going to be That's one, so that'll be decided internally, if you like. The other one is completely different. I'm really sort of awfully dismayed with the councillor who's sort of poured scorn on this. I have come across lots of people who have done a huge amount to help their community and a huge amount to help Northumberland. And I bet you, all of you know at least one or two people like that. And I just think it's high time we recognise those and gave them the freedom of Northumberland. It should be something that is an honour, and the whole point about this is to bring it to council today, to move it on to the next stage, which what I would like it to be is a meeting of group leaders to take forward the more detailed way forward on this, including a budget and how we're going to do that. So those are two different schemes. One is around the internal aldermen for long-serving councillors, some of whom are mediocre, and others who have been around and still been mediocre. But the Freeman is a scheme that I think we do need to get up and running as soon as we can to recognise those people in our community who have helped the county.
It's been proposed and seconded. Councillor Dickinson, did you want to say something?
Sorry, can I just make one quick point? Because I just want to distance myself from any chains or any sashes or any of that nature. This is something about, and this is important though, because Councillor Hill refers to people who hung around and just been around. But actually, everybody in this room sacrifices a lot. You get an allowance to carry out your duties. It's supposed to repay you for loss of work, etc., etc. But you get abused online, you get all the other things, your family gets brought into things, all sorts of things. So actually somebody that's gone through it and held high office, whether it be the leader or such like, where that additional pressure is applied, then that needs to be recognised in some way, and it shouldn't be diminished in that way. And I don't want it to be a scheme for people that have hung around and just been elected and elected and elected, which is why the criteria allows for people who've held significant office. Just because you've been elected here for 20 years doesn't mean you're going to get one of these. I mean, that's the other thing. So you can hang around as long as you like, but you might not get one. I'm not talking to you, Glenn, by the way. I'm just...
Just those people that are mediocre.
Okay, I think we've had enough on this. So have we been proposed and seconded? Do we agree with the recommendations? Agreed. Right, thank you very much for that. I will turn back to the agenda, and it is item 12. Report of the Senior Management and Deputy Monitoring Officers Members Allowance Scheme Independent Remuneration, and I always struggle with that word, panel. And it's on page 133. And it's a report from, well, it says Helen Lancaster, but I presume, Neil, you're presenting this report, is that correct?
That's right, Chair. I can speak to this. Thank you, Chair. The Members' Allowance Scheme hasn't been reviewed since 2015, and it was at the instigation of the leader that it now be looked into and reviewed. The Members' Allowance Regulations 2003 state that a scheme can only be amended by a local authority after considering the recommendations of an independent remuneration panel. And this panel must consist of 3 members. Members would be aware with of the Members' Allowance Scheme, but the regulations in summary provide for the payment of a basic allowance, special responsibility allowances, dependents carers allowance, travelling and subsistence allowance, and a co-optees allowance. The regulations also provide for the establishment of an independent remuneration panel, which councils are required to establish and maintain, and which have the functions of providing the local authority with advice on its scheme, the amounts to be paid, and the pensionability of allowances where relevant. As stated before, there have been previous reviews within the council in 2013 and 2015. With the 2015 review, there were 3 panel members, and on this occasion, officers have gone back to those panel members to gauge interest and see whether they would be interested in taking on the role again. And I can confirm to members that Mr. John Anderson, CBA, who chaired the previous review, has confirmed that he will be interested in chairing the review panel again on this occasion, as has Alison Thompson. As set out in the report there, they are both very experienced in undertaking these tasks. Unfortunately, the third panel member from the 2015 review wasn't able to be contacted, and so the members will see in the recommendations there is a proposal for authority to be delegated to officers to appoint a third panel member. And just turning to the recommendations, Chair, they are there on page 133. And just running through them quickly. And it's recommended that the Council approves the re-establishment of an independent review panel of 3 members, endorses the appointments of both John Anderson and Alison Thompson as panel members, and delegates to the Head of Democratic Services and the Monitoring Officer, in consultation with political group leaders, the process of an appointment of a third panel member. Also, the terms of reference of the panel are set out there, namely as to consider the issues and representations relating to members' remuneration and expenses, particularly also including the proposed parental leave policy, proposed payment of special responsibility allowances to the new deputy cabinet members, and the provision of payments of broadband allowances, and to make any recommendations as they see fit. There is a suggested remuneration rate for the panel members of £600 per panel member, and other than that, Chair, the only other information I have is that from looking at the 2015 review, the report of the review panel was produced back to Council within a matter of months, so it was quite a quick turnaround, so if that might assist members. But that's the report, Chair.
Thank you, Neil. That's quite detailed. Can I have a proposer and a seconder? Proposed by Councillor Sanderson, seconded by, I'm going to say Councillor Watson. I can see your hand up there. Anyone got anything to say on that? Councillor Dickinson?
I just wanted to query a couple of things. So, in terms of the remuneration of the panel at £600, is that per annum or per month? Or I'm not.
Chair, yes, I can address that.
And then,
point. Sorry, Councillor. I was just.
And then the only other thing I wanted to ask was, and it might be a change, and it could be workload or whatever, but I thought the leader said that the additional cabinet roles were not going to be remunerated. Was that? So was that the Healthy Lives one from last time? Because I could be confused. It could be, because you did put an additional cabinet member in last time, which wasn't remunerated. So I just want to confirm that that's different.
That's different.
And did you?
Okay.
Neil, did you wish to the £600 thing?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just on the £600, it says in the report that it's payable upon this review and any other reviews which are needed. I'm just conscious that there might be cause to revisit or make amendments to this scheme throughout the next 4 years. So it'll be on every time that they are called to review.
Councillor Reid.
Thanks, Chair. We've got to page 133, and I've just realised that this has been a very councillor-centric meeting, actually. No, councillor-centric. Just about everything we've talked about has been about the terms and conditions by which we work, which I just find quite interesting. And it's also just occurred to me that perhaps at some point, as we're starting to create HR policies for councillors, there should be something about the sickness policy in there too.
Okay, noted. Councillor Watson.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of points. I do notice straight away that there's a proposed parental leave policy in this discussion. I just wonder how that stacks up with what we've just discussed in a right today, and I wonder how we could get other things into the discussion. I'm thinking, for example, what the remuneration would be for people travelling with an electric car, as against travelling with a petrol or diesel car. Would that be something that would be considered? Even if it's not, how would we put it in? Thank you, Chair.
Neil, do you wish to answer either of those?
Yes, Chair. Firstly, on the parental leave policy, it's obviously the same parental leave policy that has just been discussed. The proper home for that in the Constitution is within the members' allowances scheme, and there's quite a few pages of it in the Constitution. That's the usual place that you would find it in other local authorities' constitutions, certainly. I think the other point that Councillor Watson raised is probably a matter for the panel, the independent remuneration panel. They will be interviewing councillors. If it's a matter that councillors specifically want to put before the panel, I think probably it's best making that aware to either myself or Helen Lancaster or through group leaders. But it's certainly something that the panel, that's what they're there for. They can take into account these matters and make recommendations as they see fit. And then once their report is formulated, it will be brought back before members to, they are recommendations to a council meeting. So will be put back before members. Chair.
Councillor Dale.
Yeah. Can I just ask about page 3? It's the 4th point down, representing the authority at meetings of another body. I can't actually recall ever being given any remuneration for that. Is this something that we've actually considered and turned down before, or is it something new? Because actually, if you're going to start doing, just out of interest, representing authority at meetings of another body, it could be quite an expensive thing that actually, hopefully, we could all consider ourselves able to go on our own and maybe get paid for the charges of travel. But it's actually the remuneration that concerns me.
Thank you, Councillor Dale. Do you have to say on that, Neil?
Yes, just briefly, Chair. I'm sorry, does the councillor leader want it?
No, I just think it's in there to be reviewed, and if it's just something for the panel to look at, and they may well form a view that it doesn't deserve an SRA.
Okay.
It's probably answered that. I mean, that's what I would thought.
Right.
I think that's probably answered that point, hasn't it? I mean, my view is
Yeah, so that's fine.
it is something to look at everything. I mean, their range shouldn't, life changes. We, 5 years ago, how many of us had electric? Still don't have an electric car. But how many people did? And the world moves on. So, are we happy with this? Are we happy to agree this? Agreed. Thank you. Right. I then go on to. Which one was that? It was point 12. Point 13, proposed constitutional changes report to follow. Do you all have that report? I think Councillor Towns may need that report. A lot of people don't have this report. Do we need to electronically? Okay. I think you may have had it in your emails earlier today. If you don't, have you got someone? If people have got one to refer to. Yes, if you've got that audit report, it's on the back of that. So the last 2 pages of your audit report, you've got that. I'm just going to let you all check you're all in the right places. Okay. Right. I'm just going to give you 30 more seconds. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We all ready? Okay. I'm going to. Neil, this is your report. Do you wish to say anything here?
Yes, Chair, I can just say a few things in summary, really, and just to point out to members that the roles of the returning officer and electoral registration officer are both statutory functions. We are required by law to appoint what's termed in the legislation as a proper officer in these regards, and we do this at part 4.2 of the Constitution. where there's a table of proper and authorised officers. Currently designated is the Executive Director of HR and OD and Deputy Chief Executive, who has now left the employment of the council. So the purpose of the report really is to designate another officer to fulfil that function, as we are required to do by law. And the proposal, Chair, is that the Senior Service Director, Phil Hunter, be appointed in both of these roles. In the report, I think at part 6, it gives a brief summary of there are 3 other points in the list of proper and authorised officers, which also are related to the returning officer and electoral registration officer, which also need to be appointed to the same officer. And that's set out at paragraph 6 there. So, Chair, that's the purpose of the report.
Right, okay, I'm going to bring in Councillor Sanderson and then Councillor Reid. Councillor Sanderson.
Thank you very much. The gentleman has just left. I just think that this is an excellent appointment. But I also want to say at this stage a thank you to Kelly Angus, who performed this role extremely well. She will be a big miss on this particular area, in this particular area. But I think Phil Hunter would be a first-class replacement for Kelly.
Okay, Councillor Reid.
Thanks, Chair. I'll move the recommendations, but I just need you, find, what I'm trying to say is, too much talk today, what I'm trying to say is I don't think we should be putting names in the Constitution. So I would take out Philip Hunter's name and have the appointment of the Council Senior Service Director, rather than having a named person there, because that's always a dangerous thing. And I would also hope that this is a very specialised job, as we all know. So I would hope that the person that's going to be made the returning officer is given the appropriate time and support to undertake whatever extra things they need to have learned to be able to carry out the task. We have ourselves had elections that have been a disaster because the returning officer wasn't up to the job. Fortunately, that hasn't happened for 1 or 2, but there was one, as most of us will remember, was a complete dog's breakfast. So I'm sure Mr. Hunter is brilliant, but can we make certain that he has the required support and the required training to do the job? And can we please take the name out of the recommendations? Thank you.
Neil?
Yes, Chair, just to confirm, the Constitution just does state the job title. We never refer to actually the names of individual officers.
Councillor Daly.
Thank you, Chair. And I just want to echo what Councillor Sanderson said about Kelly Angus. And it's a little bit about what Jeff Reid said. Some of us were actually in a room when we were around for what felt like a few days for an election count. And Kelly Angus, as returning officer, was exemplary. We had some of the best conducted elections that this county, and in fact this region, has ever seen. And that was down to her and her team. And I had the great fortune to work with Kelly when I was deputy leader on a number of issues and a number of topics. And I found her absolutely fantastic to work with, as indeed the whole of that leadership team sitting there. And I just want to put on record, she's going to be a great loss, but she's going to be a great asset to the NHS, where she has gone back to. But I think it would be remiss of us to forget today what an exceptional service she delivered to this council and to our county, and also on the Communities Together programme with the rest of the team. And I just want to put that on record, Chair.
Thank you. I mean, I'm just going to come in and I'll bring Councillor Dickinson in. That I was Councillor Dodd's number 2 as Deputy Business Chair. last year there were some very quiet times around here and there weren't a lot of people around here, but Kelly was here and Kelly supported myself and Richard Dodd at a very crucial time, a very tumultuous time, to be perfectly honest. And I won't forget that, and I appreciate the work she did, and she was a first-rate officer, and we will desperately miss her. As you say, we went from one of the slowest counts to one of the fastest, well-run counts in next to no time, and that ought to be recognised. I'll bring in Councillor Dickinson and Councillor Carty.
Well, I wish to echo some of it. I mean, the results may well not be what everybody wanted, but we won't dwell on that. I'd just like to say, you know, having been in administration and having Kelly as one of our officers at the time, to see her grow under the wing of Daljit Lally and into the returning officer that she became and deliver the excellent organisational skills, and I remember the one we're all referring to, but nobody wants to see it, and actually corrected a lot of things that were wrong, got this county on the footing that it needed to be on for elections and conducting elections, and let's face it, delivered one of the elections best organised counts in the middle of a pandemic. So not only for our returning officer skills, but our skills across the council shall be sadly missed.
Councillor Carty.
Yeah, I just want to say a little bit here as well. Kelly Angus was always at the end of the phone when you needed something. If you couldn't get a hold of her, she would always ring you back. It really is going to be a big loss to the council losing Kelly and our expertise. I think we're very fortunate here at the minute. We've got a really good CEO, absolutely fabulous. She rings you back every time you need something. We've got Kelly. I just hope we can retain the really good staff we have. And it is a shame Kelly's leaving. And I do wish Philip Hunt all the good luck in the world, because he was actually really good and supportive during the pandemic when I needed some help with something as well. So it's nice to welcome Philip. It's sad to lose Kelly, and I hope we lose no more senior officers.
Councillor Hill.
Thank you, Chair. Just to briefly echo the comments that everyone's made. I've always found Kelly just a brilliant officer, really helpful. And I think, like any time that an organisation loses a good member of staff, I think it's important. I hope there is an exit interview. And if it is the reason why we've lost a good member of staff, I hope that is fed in and that's taken on board. So for the same reasons, we don't continue to lose good officers because of, if it is indeed anything that's preventable.
Thank you. Okay. Are we okay to move the recommendation? It's been moved and seconded. Is that cool? So I think Councillor Reid moved it, actually. Do we have a seconder for that? Yeah, Councillor Wearmouth. Okay. Moved and seconded. Do we agree with that? Agree. Thank you very much.
Chair, can I just say it's nice to be on the winning side for a change.
I didn't want to bring up all these election results. I really didn't. Whether they take a long time or a short time, they've been quite good. But there we are. Anyway, I go to part two. Part two, and I need the council exclusion of press and public. Council is invited to consider passing the resolution of Section 100A of the Local Government Act 1972, point A and point B. There, can that be moved and seconded? Agreed. Do I need official move or anything? We're all right. Yeah. Oh, we do. Okay. Councillor Sharp moves it. Councillor Hunter, we'll keep it in the Liberals because you're being nice to you. Second it. We all agree with it. Agreed. Thank you. Thank you.